Yay. So I'll introduce Andrew. Andrew D'Souza is Chief Operating Officer of BioNym, the makers of Nymi, the heart wave sensing wristband used for seamless authentication. He's responsible for all aspects of the go-to-market, including platform, business development, and fundraising. Prior to joining BioNym, Andrew was COO of Top Hat, a Toronto-based mobile learning platform for the classroom. And in his 2 years with them, he led the efforts to raise over $11 million in funding, among other great achievements. You'll also find Andrew as a advisor to some high-growth Canadian startups and accelerators, and he's a frequent contributor to the Globe and Mail, VentureBeat, Mashable, amongst other publications, writing about entrepreneurship and technology. So please join me in welcoming Andrew D'Souza.
Thanks, Anna, and thanks everybody for having me. I feel like I kind of gave you a bit of a bait and switch because everybody came here to see our co-founder Fatini, and then at the last minute, she's really sorry she couldn't make it. She's awesome, but unfortunately couldn't make it. So you got the next best, maybe next best on the team, but I'll try and give you guys a bit of the history and do as close to as good of a job as she would. Also, small world. So the Matt, are we good here? Sweet. So yeah, I just realized I didn't even know this, but Matt Strickland, who is the surgeon CMO of Sharon's company, was my frosh leader in Waterloo. So so there's like a little bit of a Waterloo engineering thing going on. It was interesting. So I studied systems design at Waterloo, and we were like one of the only. I ended up joining a management consulting firm when I graduated, and we were one of the only programs that this firm would recruit from, mainly because we were the only ones that had we were the engineers with social skills, and I think it wasn't because we were the smartest or anything like that. It wasn't the hardest to get into, but we had like a third women in the class, and so we just kind of had to grow up a little bit earlier and like be like normal and social, and that worked out. So I think most of my current career abilities are probably because we had a more well-integrated engineering class. Anyway, on to BioNym. So BioNym was founded spun out of the University of Toronto, founded by Carl Martin and Fatini Agrafiotti. They both did their PhDs there in biometrics and cryptography. And the core, and you can kind of get a sense of our algorithms. The core technology, which was Fatini's PhD, is a set of algorithms that allows us to identify you based on your ECG, your cardiac rhythm. It's unique. It's like your fingerprint, your retina, voice, face. It's a unique biometric. And so we put it in a wearable device, and I'll kind of get into it. But starting kind of a little bit earlier, the main problem that we're trying to address is identity. So if you think about everything that you're carrying with you, right? Everything in kind of your wallet, your credit cards, driver's license, loyalty cards, to keys to your house, your car, your workplace badges, to things that you need to remember, like your usernames, passwords, PIN numbers. These are all just different forms of identity. They're different ways that you prove that you are who you say you are when you want to use a service or a device or a system. And what's happening is these services are trying to make it easier. They're trying to remove friction, but they're always sacrificing either security or privacy. So if you think about the tap-to-pay credit cards, right? Now it's a lot easier for somebody to be fraudulent because they'll just grab my credit card. They don't have to sign or put a PIN number in, but it's a lot easier. And so they're saying, well, maybe $25, maybe $50 is a limit that we can handle that level of risk. But there's always this tension around removing friction from identity and maintaining security and maintaining privacy. And so we thought, well, what if we thought about it completely different? What if these services could just recognize you for you? What if all of your devices, all of your technology, all the systems and services you interact with just recognized you when you walked up to them or when you wanted to use them, and they didn't have to worry about you being fraudulent or making a mistake? And that's kind of the synthesis that led to the idea of the Nymi. And so what we use is this Hart ID technology, which I'll go into in a little bit, and we've put it in a wearable device. And so it's closely tied to the body. You essentially put on your Nymi, and then it's able to authenticate you and provide that identity to different services. And the fundamental difference here is we've shifted the time from when you prove that you are who you say you are, when you securely provide your identity, from the time you use your identity, right? So again, if I want to go pay for a coffee, when I go pay for it, I pull out my credit card and pay for it. When I want to go access my car, I pull out my keys and get into the car. Instead, what we're saying is you prove who you are once a day. Once in the morning, you put on the Nymi and you prove that you are who you say you are. And then until you take it off, it just knows. And everything that it interacts with knows and trusts that you still are you. And so another thing that we'll touch on in a little bit, but I want you to start thinking about what happens when identity becomes easy. Because we're using identity only in high stakes situations, in places where we really need to be sure that you are who you are. We need to be sure of you, and you have access to, secure data, your email accounts, your bank accounts, all of those kind of things. And for the rest of the world, when you go shopping, when I show up at a restaurant, even when I get to an airport or hotel, I'm just an anonymous blob, right? I'm just, they don't know or care who I am. So we're trying to think about, well, what happens if it was easy for them to know who I am? How would my experience change? How can they make my life better? How can the world kind of respond to me because they know something about me? So I want to go through, just play a quick video that shows kind of our vision for the future. Hopefully this will work. So a couple of things I wanted to mention there. So like I said, it's not just about the high security things that all of a sudden become easy, right? So accessing your computer accounts, paying for things, getting into your car or your home, but personalization. The climate adjusted when he walked in the room. His Netflix started playing again. Those are the types of things that we're trying to, the types of experiences we're trying to emulate. I mean, I want to be able to walk into a retailer and they know what I've been shopping for, right? And what I abandoned in my cart, and they may have a better deal for me. They should know my name, right? I should be able to walk. I feel like every bar should be Cheers, right? I should walk in. They should know my name. They should know what I like to drink and suggest something for me. Those kind of things I think are what we're really excited about. So we'll just want to break down what the Nymi actually is. At its core is this Hart ID algorithm. We're not the first people to use ECG or to even notice this. I think from the early days, probably 50 years ago, when they first developed ECG technology, you could tell that everybody's heartbeat was a little bit different. It actually caused a lot of problems for doctors trying to diagnose problems with people's heartbeats because they didn't know if those individual differences were heart problems or just your own unique physiology. And so there was a lot of work trying to normalize those. It was only in the last 10 years that people started to use that and extract those features and try and identify people around this. And so there are a few labs around the world that came out with technologies. Ours was the one that was kind of most robust. This was Fatini's work. Was the most robust to noise and real world environments. You've got lights going. You've got electronics and things like that. those all kind of can interfere with certain systems. Our algorithms were better developed and were able to use different sets of statistics, had some machine learning involved, and was robust enough to put into a wearable device and put out in the real world. The other ones worked well in the lab, but once you took them outside of the lab, they didn't quite stand up. It also provides proximity, so you know how close you are to something. Maybe you need to be very close for payment. You just need to be, within a certain room for it to change the environment or the music or the temperature. And it has some motion control, so not nearly as kind of sophisticated as what gesture provides, but simple sets of motions for controlling and providing intent. Right? Do I want to open the door? Do I want to lift the trunk or open the front door? Do I want to authorize a payment? Do I want to turn on the TV or not? So there's a set of 6-axis accelerometers, so the same things that are in your Fitbit and Jawbone and things like that. It talks to the world using Bluetooth. And what we're really excited about is we're building a platform here. So we're trying to do for wearable tech what the iPhone did for cell phones. And the only way to do that, we're not going to build every potential application, but we do want to provide a platform, a unique user experience and form factor, so that partners and developers can build compelling experiences for their customers. And this is all the other side of it. So biometrics was one side. The other kind of foundational pillar of our company is around security and cryptography. And so we have all of the hardware is embedded. All the secure elements are embedded in the hardware, which means that if you lose your Nymi, you don't have to worry about anybody being able to access anything because it's all encrypted on the hardware. You don't have to worry about people, listening in or intercepting signals because again, it all looks like noise until you're authenticated. The other side, one other thing that I should mention is privacy is a huge concern. I know we had some questions about privacy in the past, and immediately people kind of go right there. They say, okay, well, what if how do I know that people aren't just tracking me? And that's one of, we've actually spent a lot of time, we're pretty close with the Privacy Commissioner of Ontario, and she supports our design principles, which are privacy by design. So all of the access is all completely in the hands of the user. Until you have authorized a system, a service, a lock, a retailer, whatever, to know who you are, you just look like noise. They can't tell anything about you, and then you can choose what information you want to share with them. And then as soon as you decide you don't want to share that anymore, you can turn it off. And again, that's totally revoked. And those aren't even keys that we have. So this is all between you and the systems that you use. So it's not even if the NSA came up and decided they wanted to camp out and hack into our offices, they wouldn't be able to tell anything because we don't even control those keys. So those are a couple of things that we've thought through the system. We've tried to not sacrifice security or privacy for the sake of convenience. One of the things that's different from us about Bionym than other wearable tech companies is our business model isn't really about the device. We don't really need to make money on the hardware. The opportunity here is in the platform, is in the ecosystem. The more people that recognize it, the more people that connect to it, the more valuable that becomes for everybody that's part of the network. And the idea is we want to be able to allow you to take your identity, your preferences, and share them with the world to make your experience better. And we we want to be the people that help facilitate it. A couple of reasons why we're pretty confident the world is ready for this. There's a few converging trends. The first is personalization. So, the fact that when I do a Google search, it looks different than when you do or anybody else here, because Google knows something about me and, my preferences, what I might be looking for, where I'm located, and personalizes it. When I'm logged into Facebook, my web experience is slightly different and it's personalized. We're essentially trying to transform that into the real world. Why isn't my experience when I, walk around in my everyday life personalized? The second is wearable tech. So like I said, I think wearable tech is in the early days of what, where cell phones were, probably in the 90s, right? So a lot of the wearables, the activity trackers they do one thing, right? They're like flip phones. Flip phones, you could make calls, you could send text messages. Wearable devices, you can track steps in your sleep. But beyond that, there's not really a platform. We're starting to get the Galaxy watches and the Pebbles and things like that are getting app ecosystems, but there's no true unifying platform. And so that's what we're trying to do with the Nymi is use identity as the foundation, but create a platform for people to build on top of. The third is biometrics. And so with Apple's new 5S, they've introduced the fingerprint sensor into it. And if people had freaked out and said, look, I don't want Apple to know anything, to have my fingerprints or anything, we would have been in a different situation. But the fact that people recognize biometrics as a convenient form of authentication means that I think the world is kind of getting there. And then the fourth is the kind of Internet of Things movement. We've seen, Google's just acquired Nest. There's a bunch of people between connected cars, connected home environments, smart retail, smart workplaces. They're not just going to be kind of these passive devices that aren't part of a network. There's a connected ecosystem that's coming. And the beauty of it is with the latest Bluetooth standard, with Bluetooth Low Energy, all these devices are now talking the same language. And so for them now to recognize a Nymi and respond to that means that it's just a software upgrade. You can just kind of go in there and it's not a expensive new hardware installation. I was thinking about not putting this or changing the title of this slide because it feels a little cocky. I was going to be a little bit more Canadian and say, why Nymi or something like that. But I was like, you know what? We need to build big companies here. So yeah, we are going to win, right? Like this is so why we're going to win. We've got a few things in our back pocket that I think give us a bit of an advantage over the guys trying to do something similar in Silicon Valley or New York or London. And I think we're going to be able to pull it off and build a massive company here in Toronto. So one of them is we're getting some mainstream recognition. We were worried that security people get it, right? Security people understand multi-factor biometric security, the RSA tokens and VPN systems and all that stuff. We knew that they were interested in this. But the question is, are consumers ready? Are consumers going to be ready to get into this? And we've got some pretty great positive signals, both from the media and from some large partners that are really excited about working with us. This is a pretty strong view that thinks we're solving a pain point that consumers care about. The next is we've actually got a developer ecosystem started. Now it's not an iPhone, Apple developer ecosystem, but before we launched, we had over 6,000 developers that have signed up to build applications and build integrations. And this is everything from folks in their garage, kind of hacking on projects, to large multinational companies that want to go and test this out and build a proof of concept, which is really encouraging. And then the third is some defensible tech. So we had a technology transfer, all of the IP and patents from the University of Toronto, and we continue to build on them and develop them. And we're testing some of those algorithms and continuing to refine them based on all of your generous donations of your heart signatures. Market says, this is actually, I took this from our investor pitch, but we were in the middle of three massive hyper-growth markets. And some of the things, so we've got a bunch of exciting things coming up in 2014. The two main things we're trying to accomplish is showcase what the future looks like. So, showcase what an airline, these are kind of just example brands that we'd love to work with, and some of them we're talking to, some of them we're working on talking to. But essentially it's, showcase the future of the world. So showcase an airline terminal that is, instead of me checking in, I just walk right through all the way to security and board the plane. Show me the future of a hotel or a store or a restaurant. And these will be kind of getting people in this sense of, your identity matters. Who you are matters, and the world should recognize that. The second half is kind of where the developer ecosystem comes in, where we really want to build some utility. We're really looking to create applications that you use and get value out of every day. I think what's going to happen is people will make the initial purchase because they'll see the showcase. They'll see the video. They'll hear about the integrations with the airlines. They'll buy into the vision of the future, and then they'll start using it. And they'll start using it for their passwords and to track. They'll probably actually track their activities and steps and things like that. They'll use it to enter their home and their car. They'll use it for payments and things. We actually have a big announcement coming out tomorrow. Keep an eye out on the press on some payment stuff that we're working on. But you'll use it and you'll forget about it in your everyday life until one day the battery dies and you're like, oh no, I forgot all these things that the Nymi does. And that's our goal, right? It's kind of like, we want the technology to almost fade in the background and make your life easier just by doing little things for you that you didn't realize were annoying to do until you just forget about it. And so that's the goal. And so if we feel like we can establish this brand, we can get people to think about, how my identity can improve my life in the future, and at the same time, how I can get value out of this in my everyday life, and we can accomplish that this year, then we'll be ready for retail in 2015, and we'll go to Amazon and Best Buy, and we'll try and get into everybody's shelves. And I think that's all I've got. So thanks a lot, and I think we've got some questions or something.
Thanks, Andrew. So I'm going to take questions, and if you could just repeat them over the mic, that'd be great. Sure. So if anyone has a question, I can walk the mic over to you. Anybody?
Have you guys found that the heart signature ever changes throughout the day, and would that affect the way the Nymi recognizes you? Let's say, for example, you have a stressful day or a stressful moment and that changes, or you've just seen someone who's very attractive and suddenly your heart rhythm changes. Will the Nymi no longer identify you for a moment?
Yeah, so we thought about all that. Spent a lot of time thinking about that. No, so the way the system actually works is it's not continuously monitoring your heart rate. So your ECG is an electrical signal. If you think of your heart as a battery, you have an anode and cathode. You need to complete the circuit for it to measure your ECG. So what happens in the video you saw, he puts on the Nymi and then touches it with his opposite hand, and so it's measuring a couple of heartbeats then it's authenticated. And then all it's doing is monitoring it hasn't been taken off. So you haven't removed it, it hasn't been cut or broken or anything like that, and it's able to continually provide your identity. So you can go run a marathon, you can go to see some attractive people, whatever, and not worry about it. It's only when you take it off and then put it back on that you need to kind of be in that same heart rate. We can handle pretty good variations. I mean, so moderate exercise, running up a flight of stairs or whatever, or kind of general level of stress, the algorithms will support. If you've just run a marathon, it's probably not going to register you. So you could either register that signature. You can say, look, I'm going to be, so we've had some military people and folks asking, they know that they're going to be authenticating often in a stressed state. So they just need to add that data. So this is me running a marathon, this is me at rest, and then we can identify both of those. Or you could just wait, a minute or two until your heartbeat calms down. Oh, yeah, sorry, I didn't repeat the question. The question was, does your heart rate change throughout the day, and will that cause a problem?
So.
Hello? Yeah. Hi there. It sounds like today none of the big threes, being Apple, Microsoft, or Google, have released their solution of what a wristband wearable technology is for them. So far, I don't think there's a mainstream solution that's available for the everyday guy. And it seems like it's about to be released sometime soon. Until then, do you have any worries or fears that a wristband wearable might be the standard, a certain brand might be the standard for someone to wear versus your solution?
Yeah, so the question was, do you want me to repeat these still? Yeah, so the no? Okay. All right, everybody hear the question. Yeah, so look, I totally get it. We're going after a market that everybody is looking at, and it's pretty clear that probably all three of the big players are going to release something. And that's kind of what makes it fun. I think we're going to try and get out ahead of Apple and establish the platform. I think one of the things is they haven't released something because they don't really know what their wearable solution is going to be, right? And I think we saw Samsung's Galaxy Gear. It was a cool, had a lot of features and bells and whistles, but in terms of your everyday life, it's kind of like a tiny cell phone on your wrist. It doesn't really change your life very much. So I think until somebody comes up with a unique angle into the market that says this is how wearables are actually going to improve life, not just kind of measure my activities or what I'm doing, or alert me of prevent me from having to just take out my phone, but really improve the way that I operate my life. I don't think we're going to see something that's mainstream. And so we're making a big bet that we've got something that's compelling enough that both consumers will get on board, and the ecosystem, so the partners and the developers are going to kind of jump on this and say, yeah, we're going to kind of place our bet on this horse and go big. And we don't have the marketing budgets or resources that an Apple or Google would, but I think we've got a better solution, and I think we've got a more compelling tack into the market.
All of the wearable stuff is bracelets, but has anybody looked at other accessories? Because especially women, I think, would like to have, I want to wear a ring, I want earrings, I want a necklace today that'll still sync, but be pretty.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we've been thinking about future designs of the Nymi in different form factors. So the two things that it needs to be able to do is you need to be able to touch it with your opposite or with some 2 points of the body, and it needs to be able to monitor that it hasn't been removed. So that could either be through continuity loop or temperature sensors or proximity sensors or something like that. And so, yeah, we're certainly looking at different designs. I think the wristband right now was, one, the easiest kind of to prototype and get in the market. Two, we actually kind of want it to be a bit of a status symbol. We want it to be visible to people because, again, the people that originally get it are going to be the early adopters. They're going to want to be seen wearing it. They're going to be wearing it because they've got some kind of they believe that their identity matters, right, and who they are matters. And so that's how our initial go-to-market is. But we actually feel like this overall design philosophy of technology fading into the background is part of our kind of company ethos. So eventually it's probably going to be something that isn't even visible, right? You're wearing it either as an anklet or under your clothing or belt or something like that, but still provides you the functionality. But the first ones, we actually want it to be out there a little bit and a bit more in your face.
So then, sticking with the bracelets for now, even I was just at a party and everyone was showing off their Fitbit. You're exactly right. So, and I saw Fitbit listed in one of your slides. Are you talking with them yet? Are they going to be a little cranky? Because I don't know if they make more money off of their hardware or their software, but if you're going to try to work with them, I'm sure you've figured out how.
Yeah. So we'd love for Fitbit or Jawbone to basically be an app on the Nymi platform. There's some indications that they may look down that road. I think we need to actually go and prove that we've got a platform play. But I think that's one of the nice things is they could be their unique value is really the software. The hardware is being commoditized, and other than the industrial design on the hardware, the actual core technology is a set of accelerometers and motion coprocessor and some algorithms. So I think what we have all that same hardware, and we can, because our business model doesn't depend on the hardware, we can offer it at a much reduced price. And so as we go, more broadly, we will ideally have apps for all of those guys. What we'll probably launch with is actually a different fitness company, so either like a Reebok or Adidas, or another fitness company that builds, and markets an app that does similar types of functionality. Hey.
I have a question. I'm just curious, how tech savvy do you have to be as a user to use something like this? Like, I'm thinking about setup. Is it challenging? Do you have to be pretty tech savvy? Is it time consuming? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So when you first put it on, there's an enrollment process. So it's about 2 minutes of, and you'll see if you want to try it. This is essentially what the enrollment process is. We create a biometric signature. And so that should be pretty. Actually, you can talk to Jessica, who's setting it all up. She's our kind of UI product manager right now, and so she's created kind of a very streamlined setup process, which makes it really easy. And then in terms of what's that? Yeah, it's totally simple. And then when you install new apps, when you authorize new services. there's going to be kind of a simple authorization process. So they'll ask for access to something. You'll walk into a place that is Nymi enabled. They'll ask for access to something, and then you either tap to provide access, or you can authorize it on a phone app or something. So those are things that we're now setting the guidelines, the same way that Apple sets design guidelines of where the menu should be and what the back button should do. We're setting those guidelines for developers so that they know, here are the gestures that I need to be able to do. Here's the, how I talk to the vibration motor and how I get the response back. So we're hoping that whole process is really intuitive and seamless. It might take us a couple of iterations to get there, but that's the goal. Yeah, so the question was, does the authentication space get crowded, and how do we differentiate ourselves? How do different systems work if somebody's wearing Google Glass or using the iOS fingerprint app? Yeah, I mean, I think there are different authentication mechanisms that work in different systems or in different environments. So, while fingerprint or retina may make sense in an airport or in a certain for certain types of things, we feel like with the ECG sensor that's in the Nymi, it's closely tied to the body. It can't really be measured from afar, so there are getting to be better and better cameras that can actually recognize a retina from like across a room. With fingerprints, I mean, I left my fingerprints everywhere. I leave my fingerprints on my phone. So there are certain applications where the ECG actually makes a lot of sense as a biometric that is tied to you and difficult to measure and replicate. And then in terms of you're wearing a bunch of different things that authenticate you, I think it really depends on, again, on the environment that you're in. So maybe Google Glass works well for something that requires that heads-up display, but if you're just walking around an environment, you don't want the heads-up display, you don't need it, the Nymi is able to kind of passively provide that. The other big difference is, for let's say the iPhone only knows that it's me when my finger is on that iPhone. Is on the button, right? As soon as I take my finger off the button, it could be anybody. It could be in anybody's hands, and they don't know that, right? And so the big difference is this concept of persistent identity, where it's assumed trusted identity until it's not, until it's taken away, rather than transactional identity, where I'm actually proving who I am, consistently whenever I need to use it. There's a question in the back there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's one strategy. One of the nice things, though, is as a lot of new point of sale systems are getting Bluetooth enabled, we actually don't need to do that. So I'm not sure if those PayPal Tim Hortons ones are. I think they're NFC. But so like anything that's using a Square point of sale system is running on an iPad that talks Bluetooth. So we don't actually need to install any new hardware to go and operate in Square environments. The other thing is any kind of mobile payment system, you can authenticate to the device. And the third is online. So really for the first time, you can actually have seamless kind of online e-commerce shopping and know exactly who's sitting at the computer authorizing the purchase, and then be able to tie that same identity into the store. And so that's what we're excited about. I think that's what a lot of retailers are excited about as well. Yeah, I think we got.
We'll do two more questions.
So you mentioned the example of you walk into a bar, they know your name, they know your favorite drink, so they have a profile of you that's generated from data points. Are those profiles that would talk to each other? So for example, if you watch a bunch of YouTube videos of race car driving and then you go into a sports store, are they going to know that you recently expressed an interest in that race car driving? So do they have separate profiles? And if they do talk to each other, would there be a way to say, well, I don't want the sports store to know what I watch on YouTube?
Yeah, so you totally, all the profiles are totally separate and controlled by the user, right? So every account that I have a unique identity and a unique account with that system, with that service provider. What we've looked at doing, what we may do at some point is allow you to create a kind of unified profile that you can share aspects of, so it's easier, so you don't have to set up a new profile with every new thing. So it's almost like your Facebook profile. Here are my preferences and my likes. Here's how I take my coffee. Here are my dietary restrictions. Here's whatever, like certain things about me. Here's how I like my temperature. Here's the type of music I like, and you can start to share those, more generally. But again, it's completely in the hands of the user. So it's not like, we're not facilitating, and we're not kind of trying to allow different services to trade and share data. That's really something that you say, I think you're going to be able to use this information to make my life better, and so I'm willing to provide it, rather than it being, like kind of predatory from the retailers or folks.
Last question here for Andrew.
Sorry, not really a question. I just wanted to say, for all the geeks and developers in the room, with the Nymi, we are creating a developer platform, and I'm the developer community manager. So if you are excited about the technology and you'd like to get the dev Nymi, you'd like to develop, or you just have a cool idea that you'd love to see implemented, please come and chat with myself, Andrew, or anyone from the Bionym team, and we'd love to chat with you. So yeah, please come on by. And thank you very much for Andrew for the amazing presentation today.
Thanks, guys.
In that case, we'll take one last question. You tricked me. Someone here had a question? No?
No questions.
No?
The origin of the name.
Oh yeah, so Bionym. So Bionym stands for bio, which is biometrics, and nym, which is the Latin word for name. So it's your biometric name. And the Nymi was a cute adaptation of the nym side of it. So.
Could be not you, me, right?
Oh, I like that. Oh, yes, yes, that's exactly, yeah, that's what it is. That's, yeah, exactly. I like that. That's, yeah.